against it, and there are certain prohibitions of investment against it, so that those funds are secured for future generations, as indeed required, Your Excellency, under Article 201C of the Constitution, Your Excellency. This bill provides that the fund will be managed by a board, the chairman appointed by the President, the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, Cabinet Secretary for Mining, Cabinet Secretary for Petroleum, and 4 other persons who will be competitively recruited, Your Excellency, depending on their competencies, to sit in that board. The board provides certain protections to the fund, including the investment, establishment of investment manager. It establishes where funds can be invested and where funds should not be invested, Your Excellency. It prohibits the investment of those funds from things like private equity, speculative derivatives, and other commercial investments which are high risk. The idea is to protect the fund from the risk appetite of the board and also ensure the fund is well protected, Your Excellency. It also requires that the fund shall be managed in accordance with the Public Finance Management Act, together with other provisions contained in the Act, Your Excellency. The bill has 4 schedules. One of the schedules provides for how the investments can be made, how drawings can be made, the affairs of management, the management of the affairs of the board, and many more. 61 clauses, Your Excellency, and 4 schedules. Permit me, Your Excellency, to end my commission for the day there. Thank you, sir.
Your Excellency, in observance of the constitutional requirement that instruments issued by the head of state be executed under the hand and seal of the President, I now invite Your Excellency, accompanied by the pupils, to affix the seal of the Republic to the bills, thereby perfecting their enactment into law. With Your Excellency's assent, the Sovereign Wealth Fund Bill now becomes law and is entered into the body of the laws of the Republic of Kenya. Through this enactment, the nation's journey towards first world status is firmly placed on course. So, Your Excellency, you may present a signed copy of the Act to His Excellency the Deputy President and the Attorney General for publication, and the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury for implementation. And thereafter, you may present to the Speaker and all the Leader of Majority and all other members of Parliament present. So may we all arise so that we can celebrate the new act. The fanfare again. Your Excellency, you may resume your seat.
With your permission, Your Excellency, we are now going to progress to a panel discussion. But before that, as we get the stage ready, allow me to invite the State House Choir to give us a short interlude of music as we prepare the stage for the panel discussion. State House Choir, over to you. Why don't we appreciate the State House Choir with a clap? Thank you very much. With a wonderful song right there, Naipenda Kenya. Your Excellency, with your permission, allow me now to transition to the panel discussion, and at this point to invite the moderator or the discussant, which is Mr. Wallace Kantai, Head of Communication at Central Bank of Kenya, to take his seat. We can give him a clap as he's coming. Karibu sana, Wallace. Let me also invite Mr. Tom Gitogo, Group MD and CEO Britam, to also take his seat. Mr. Nicholas Indondeka, Chair Fund Managers, to also take his seat. Mr. Paul Russo, Group CEO, KCB, Mr. Paul Russo. Dr. James Mwangi, CEO, Equity Bank of Kenya PLC. A clap for him as well as they're coming. Then the last panel person is Honorable FCPA John Badi, the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning, to take their seats. Most welcome. You may take your seats, and I'll now hand over to Mr. Wallace Kantai, who is going to be the discussant or the moderator for this panel. Welcome.
As we wait for our last participant on the panel, Your Excellency, the President, Your Excellency, Deputy President, fellow guests, and I dare say it's a room full of friends. Hamjambo. I will not do what I used to do, which is commentate on this, but I think, permit me to say, it's a very exciting day. And I think primarily, not so much with the top people that we have in front of us, but the guests, Your Excellency, who you had just a few minutes ago. I think we haven't seen that in too many places, and I think recognition that this is on their behalf. We are custodians of all these resources on behalf of those generations. So gentlemen, and my apologies for gentlemen only on my panel, I promise to do better next time. We want to begin this conversation and want to keep it moving fairly quickly. And I think the best person to begin with is the Honorable Cabinet Secretary. We have said many times that we are on the road to Singapore. But I suspect you want to add to that you're now on the road to Norway in terms of the fund. Why the fund? What does it do that is so special for us? Bonasias.
Thank you very much. First, let me state that this government set on transformation journey, and there cannot be any transformation without reforms. And therefore, we have embarked on a series of reforms, one of which is to pay attention to the principles of our Constitution. And when you look at the principles of our Constitution, one of the things that stand out very, very clearly is what we call intergenerational equity. And you cannot speak to intergenerational equity without thinking about the current or the resources that we have and how much would be used by the current generation and how much would be designated for future generation. We have been exploiting the minerals that we have, the petroleum products that may be there, without any regard to the future generation. I'll give you an example that we have had minerals in Kwale, but going forward, and the future generation will be asking, where is that mineral that we hear was in Kwale? We would not have an answer. This act, it is now not a bill, is addressing that anomaly by creating a fund, which we call the Sovereign Wealth Fund, in the model of Norway. I know there is also another model of the UK, but ours is borrowing largely to the model of Norway, where now we are creating three funds. The first one is the Stabilization Fund, and the second one is the Strategic Infrastructure Fund. But the most important one, which has been ring-fenced and protected through the Act, and where we have designated 30% of all the revenue that would be generated from minerals and petroleum proceeds to go into, and that is the intergenerational or the future generation fund, which is for the intergenerational equity. So that is what is distinct, and this government will go on record in history as that government that thought about the future of generation of this country.
Thank you, Bonasias. Norway is in the quarterfinals, by the way, of the World Cup. We hope that that's an additional promise you're making to us. Bonakili, you've been in charge of public funds, in a manner of speaking, for a very long while. How exciting is this moment for you, and what does it mean going forward?
Thank you very much. On behalf of our pension industry, I would like to say we are very excited because we normally deal with intergenerational wealth, actually, because we deal with pensions for the current generation, we deal with the future generations, and as a trust. For me, it's exciting because I believe that we should actually consider other sources of funding this sovereign wealth fund beyond the natural resources. I believe any Kenyan of goodwill should be allowed to donate their wealth to the sovereign wealth fund. So I want to suggest that the House of Parliament should consider an amendment to enable any Kenyan or even any foreigner who loves Kenya of goodwill to donate into this fund. I would be one of the first ones to put some of my wealth in my will to the sovereign wealth fund. Secondly, there are many other sources like unclaimed financial assets. We have other sources also which are obviously we need to consider that these resources are attached to go to the sovereign wealth fund. And as a result, we shall build a fund very fast. Also, the common people, the citizens should be allowed to put in whatever shilling they should be able to put in. You remember, and I know our head of state is a Christian, that when Christ came to recognize the best donor or the best person who gave, it was an old lady who gave the only money she had into the kitty. I would suggest that the common wananchi are allowed to give even a shilling into this fund. And as a result of that, that money should be then invested. And we are appealing to our capital markets through the Nairobi Stock Exchange to play their role in enabling us to grow this exponentially. So we are excited. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. And that is an interesting proposal because one of the people who revolutionized finance from the mass direction is yourself, Bona James Mwangi, starting 30 or so years ago, and we can see where it's led to now in terms of what I might call financial inclusion, but more particularly people taking part in the development of their own country. Is this another revolutionary moment similar to that one that you led all those years ago?
Thank you very much. I think this is beyond a revolutionary movement because it's the collective will of the Kenyan people signaling their commitment to invest into the future. So when a people decides to build the future themselves, they liberate themselves from dependence. And I see this as a bold step, saying that we are changing the way we have done things before. The second one, it speaks broadly about the maturity of the Kenyan people. When people think beyond themselves and think about future generations, it then means perpetuation of a legacy of a nation. But also, when you create an institution with the protocols, like the one enshrined in this institution, you protect that wealth specifically. And that is what I see as very bold steps that are very, very transformative. But I think for me, what touched me most was to see a Wings to Fly scholar. And he greeted me and said, "You gave me a scholarship. I can now see investment for the job that I will take after education." So you can see people can relate, that it's not just pleasant, but the future is secured. And that to me is quite telling. But let me talk about Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund. That is maybe the best example, and you can compare it with the British Sovereign Wealth Fund. They were started at the same time for the same purpose, but you can see Norway now has 2.2 trillion US dollars in the sovereign fund for a population of 5 million people. That is staggering. They have not only secured their children, they are now securing grandchildren. But what is unique about this, and I say it, I know it well, because 14% of the entire shareholding of Equity Bank is by the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund. You could imagine, we Equity are limiting 14% of all the dividend we are paying to the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So the structure of investment, they can tap on the best investment in the world to facilitate the growth of their wealth. But we have borrowed this concept as equity. We all know equity 30 years ago, you have evoked 30 years ago. The smallest financial institution in Kenya, number 66 out of 66. But it's the discipline of thinking about the future that has created equity. The last time equity raised capital was 2007. 2007. But 20 years, we have funded by sharing today's prosperity to build the future. We only pay 30% of available for distribution as dividend and reinvest 70%. And I see this is what the country has started to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bwana Rousseau, you're also in the banking sector, but I'll approach it perhaps more directly in that regard, and where the banking sector is today and what it looks like going into the future. This is new, but it's also very big in terms of the resources that will be in it, and also some of the ambition behind it. How do you think the banking sector will interface with it and react to it?
Yeah, thank you, Wallace, and thank you, James, for pitching for the banking sector and the role that we need to play. I think just in the first instance, when you see the captains of industry that are present here for banking, tells you how important this is. I think we have more than 10, if I'm not wrong, of CEOs from banks that are present here. Wallace, I think I'll start by answering this question broadly. I think we've pitched the country in a number of instances from banking sector from a return on investment basis. And that has been significantly high. I think we've done extremely well. These two funds, and I'm lucky to sit in the council of the National Infrastructure Fund, these two funds specifically set two major requirements for us to take the next bold step for the country. One is governance and transparency. I think if there is an assurance that every single investor has been looking for, I think that answer has been provided in the way these funds have been structured. And that's extremely very important. And to take it also on a lighter note, in every single time that banks have attempted to de-risk investment and working with government, we've been going for letters of support. We've been running to say, give us some guarantee, something we can hold on to. I think these funds have been structured to be able to de-risk investment and how we work to bring to life significant infrastructure investments in the case of NIF. But on this particular fund, also starting to take a bet on the country. So let's just take, for example, Gulf Energy investing in, taking over Talo and investing in Turkana, which KCB is supporting. I think you can see from a commercial investment, but today you see from a future and guaranteeing value for generations to come. You can get oil out of the ground, you can commercialize. We can all be happy in the current instance, but this fund ensures that future generations benefit out of that. And I think for banks, there lies the confidence, and how we should then be able to support that we are not just investing for today, but we are playing and putting our bet on the country for the future.
And since you still have the mic, Mr. Rousseau, and taking advantage of the fact that lots of Kenyans may be watching this right now or later, what then is the difference between the two funds? Because they'll see within a very short space of time, we have two very big funds. We are making, rightfully so, a very big deal out of them. What then is the difference? Where would their attention lie depending on where they're coming from?
So I think, I'll try and be basic, Wallace, in this front. I think the National Infrastructure Fund comes in to answer the question. Because there are no easy choices from where we are as a country. Let me be, as chairman of KBA, right? You've borrowed to the limit. Yet we must deliver critical infrastructures. And I think sometimes we let government speak about it, private sector must speak about some of these things. We can complain about Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, we must put our neck online to make sure, for example, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is done. National Infrastructure Fund comes in to say, how do we deliver those significant national projects without loading additional debt and borrowing to government? And that I think is and those infrastructure projects are here. They are not things we are going to think futuristic about. I've just given you an example of JKIA. Sovereign Wealth Fund then says, but I've got resources, whether the underground, the overground, whether you're talking about carbon, I think mining has been specified, petroleum has been specified. I think carbon should be in that category. I think Kelly just talked about well-wishers and people who want to deeply invest in this country. But it says, hello, we're not spending it for those of us that are here today. We have to have a structure to ensure that future generations are protected and that preservations happen in a well-governed, transparent manner. That's the difference of the two funds in the most basic way. Because I think we're speaking to Kenyans, not financial, experts. That speaking to Kenyans, not financial, experts. That we are, and in both instances, and you can see, it is asking for expertise from all sectors and all fronts. It's not a government-led and it's not government-driven agenda. It is a collective. So. If you see at the infrastructure fund, and the chair of the council is here, because just of the structure, and probably the only fund that starts with money already, the quality of applicants for the board has shocked many of us. Never have we seen that level of quality of applicants from private sector wanting to fund. I can assure it's because of the structure and how it has been defined. And the advantage of being a panelist. Now, if you look at this, the sovereign fund as well, it has 4 independent, competitively recruited individuals to represent. I think we have to pay attention to governance and transparency in both funds and how it's enshrined in the acts as a way of sustaining and building confidence. Because all of them will thrive on confidence, isn't it? Investors thrive on confidence. So I hope, over and above just clarifying the difference in the basic way, to stretch it a little bit and probably challenge us in the private sector to start being advocates of certain things. I think James just mentioned about the Norwegian fund. We've got to try and then advocate for that to come to life.
Thank you very much, and I think that's a very useful set of clarifications you provided. Bwana Ithondeka, I noticed you and your colleagues walked in very excited until a few minutes ago. Then you were told, kill the word risk from your vocabulary. At least the people on my table got very unexcited. How should you look at this? Because investment and returns does have a certain element of understanding and taking on risk. But a sovereign wealth fund, wherever you look at it, including ours and what you've said here, is that risk element must be controlled, because we can't go off on adventures when the future generations are looking at us and they find that the coffers are empty. How do you then deal with that?
Thank you, Kantai. And indeed, you're right. Your Excellency, when you walked in here, I noticed most of my council members were salivating until the element of risk was put in the table. Allow me to say this, Your Excellency, because I am the chairman of the Fund Managers Association. There are quite a number of council members in the room, and I need to make sure when I go back, I'm still the chairman. So, Your Excellency, what they asked me to do today is to convey just one thing, to tell you thank you so much, because in the last 3 years, we are delivering double-digit returns to our clients. And this is the third year in a row that we are seeing numbers hitting almost close to 20% on our funds. And the likes of Dr. Kili are very happy, the likes of Koros, the likes of Dr. Yabe, and that movement that has been there back to back, as they say in football, Your Excellency, is because of that focus. So we must say thank you for that braveness, walking into the markets quite quickly as soon as you took over, and that excitement and that confidence was executed in the market. Your Excellency, they say, when I was a young man, one of my council members used to tell me, he was my boss then, now I'm his chairman, so life can change. He told me that fortune favors the brave, and Your Excellency, you have done that for us, and you have led from the top. So Kantai, you talk about how does it relate in terms of risk and in terms of protecting our markets. The capital markets, as you may know, Your Excellency, we thrive on what he calls stability. Around the table there, we were discussing the fact that one of the strongest pushes for the last 3 years was the fact that there was stability. There's always movement in markets, but if the movements are predictable, if you're talking about the 2-3% movement, any investor can take that. And I can see my good friend Tadase is on your table. And he keeps on looking at me like someone who, like they look at a child who never appreciates what he has. And the word they use there, out there, Your Excellency, is demographic capital. Demographic capital, dear ladies and gentlemen, is what we've done today, which means you're investing for the demographics, which is beyond us. And that alone, Kantai, it may not be coming to the fund managers to invest. It may be restricted, as Hassan mentioned, in terms of what is controlled. But that stability is what gives the investor confidence that you're seeing in Kenya. Even now, as we speak, Your Excellency, we were hosting the big banks of US last week, Royal Bank of Canada, Royal Canadian Bank, and the way they are talking about Kenya is beyond even fundamentals. It's about just positive excitement and what we call demographic capital. So while we may not be directly benefiting, it may be controlled, as the Parliament has put it, but for us, we know that stability is what we thrive on. Stability of markets, predictability of returns, when people can invest and be able to see what is coming in the next 3 years, for us, we are more than happy to continue residing in this economy and doing the best we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Bwana Gitogo. I'll approach you from as an elder, because you've been in charge of rather large pools of capital. Now you feel sort of a bit safer because there's another large pool. What advice then would you give the CS, members of the board, and even arguably His Excellency the President, with regard to how to manage this? You've been managing through thick and thin, through difficult times and easier times, and now you've been put on the spot. How do you advise them?
So thank you. One disadvantage I have is that about 5 gentlemen have spoken before me, and each one of them has taken a point from what I wanted to say. But having said that, obviously, transparency and governance is very key for any big fund of this size. And that has been said and put very well by Russo. The next thing is that the risk element, as His Excellency mentioned, is key. The approach of the investments need to take into account what the purpose of the fund is. There's three bits. Obviously, the stabilization, which is very good for our economy. It will attract investors, big and small, because of that stability. Economies go up and down. There's nothing we can do about that. But with stabilization, that helps us attract and continue investing into the future. So the right amount of risk, particularly reducing significantly the risk exposure to the part of the fund that is about future generations is key. But the fund will also not grow if it is not very well diversified. James talked about the Norway fund investing in Kenya. That gives it exposure to a double-digit growth in a growing economy. So I would expect that the fund would also look at investing elsewhere on the continent and elsewhere in the world, because it broadens the risk base. I think that is important, but obviously that needs to be done professionally, as Nick has said. And then obviously keeping in tandem with the trends. We have to invest, especially because things are changing, and we know the wider demographic is the youth. We cannot obviously also invest in what we have always invested in. I'm excited about the infrastructure, because in the insurance space, we are looking for long-term investments, and it's the same case with pensions. And this fund, in conjunction with the National Infrastructure Fund, will make a lot of the infrastructure investments that we so desperately need in this country bankable. And that will attract long-term funds from the private sector, including the insurance business. Yes.
Thank you. And perhaps I want to come back to you, CS, now getting into the details. In terms of the way the fund has been structured, we have spoken about protecting or ring-fencing for future generations, but at the same time, James Mwangi spoke about Norway investing in equities, which are of necessity risky.